Sawasdee krap. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, this is always the most stressful session because it's after lunch. And I always say that, especially in Thailand where the food is just so yummy, just so wonderful, you cannot stop eating. So we'll have a very interesting job trying to keep everyone energized and awake. But we're up to it because this is a very interesting topic that we're going to discuss with you about, and it is a topic that everyone will be interested in. Everyone is living and breathing talent issue. So my name, as introduced, is Chun. I work for ACCA, and I'm going to start by telling you a story. So this is a story about my friend's daughter. So her name is Sarah, and Sarah lives in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia with her parents, and she just started work with one of the larger firms in Kuala Lumpur last year. And her starting pay is ringgit 4,000. I think that translates to about 10,000 Thai baht monthly. After the EPF, which is the Provident Fund in Malaysia, her take-home pay is about 3,600. Now, Sarah, according to her parents, is a fiercely independent young lady. She would have moved out of her parents' place the moment she started work if she could afford it. Okay, but she couldn't afford it, so she's staying put at the moment. But Sarah leads a simple life. She doesn't go to Starbucks. She only drinks Nescafe 3-in-1, which you get from the office pantry. She doesn't drive. She takes the public transport everywhere she goes. And when it's relating to client's work, she will take a Grab, and then she'll charge it to the client. She doesn't eat in expensive restaurant. She allows herself maybe once a week in a simple, cheap restaurant with her friends. The one luxury that Sarah allows herself is holiday. So she will try to go for maybe 2 short trips, but only to neighboring countries. But of course, she's very lucky because she lives in Malaysia, and we are all in Southeast Asia, and there are so many wonderful destinations that she can go to. So like a good accountant, Sarah does her debits and credits. She keeps track of the cash flow in and out. She uses this free app to keep track of that. And after about a year with her job, Sarah was horrified to realize that actually, she's barely scraping by, just generally, right? So she is actually very, very far from her dream of achieving financial independence, of moving out, living in her own place. So she can't really see that destination. It feels like a very distant dream. And yet, Sarah also recognized that she's actually one of the lucky ones, because she has colleagues who are from out of town, from outside of Kuala Lumpur, who works in Kuala Lumpur, and they get absolutely crushed just by the rental expenses alone. Right? So these are the people when you try to get them to go out, for Friday drinks, just gathering, they will always say, I'm very, 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 very busy with work, which is not untrue, but the real reason is they simply cannot afford to splurge on themselves. In the ACCA Global Talent Trend Research that was released early this year, we started off the survey with a broad question. What's keeping you awake at night? What's keeping the professional accountants around the world awake at night? What is their topmost concerns, work-related concerns? And the 8,500 respondents from around the world, including 1,000 from Southeast Asia, gave us a very compelling message. And inflation, reducing real wage, came in decisively as the top concern across many of the jurisdictions. And that is followed by mental health, mental health well-being, and then followed by global economic downturn that's affecting their job opportunities. And incidentally, the World Economic Forum Global Risk Survey that was released early this year as well identified cost of living crisis as the top short-term crisis for the world. And to put it into context, this is above our existential crisis of climate change. This is above geo-economic confrontation. This is above cyber risk. So cost of living issue is a real issue to many of us, which I'm sure you are experiencing as well. We have a very simple chart on the screen right now, which does a simple comparison. So you see the red line and the gray line. Okay, the red line represents the proportion of respondents who told us that remuneration is a very important factor when deciding who they want to work for, which organization they want to work for. And the gray line represents the proportion of the respondents who say that they are satisfied with their remuneration today. Notice that I'm not even looking for very satisfied, which would be a much lower proportion, right? So it's very important versus satisfied, and you can see very clearly across the different sectors that it is a gap. It is sometimes a very big gap, except for not-for-profit and self-employed, which I think is quite understandable. And when we do the same analysis and cross-analyzing, okay, I need to move a bit closer. Okay. Cross-analyzing with the inclination to leave the current role. So what this means is, I'm looking at against the gap, but this time looking at how soon they want to change role, right? And you can see, again, very clearly, those who are more inclined to change role quickly, within 12 months, 1 to 2 years, beyond 3 years, those who are more inclined to move from the current role quickly are the least satisfied with their remuneration. And I think this is probably quite logical, but I think we were still quite surprised to see how pronounced the difference is, the trend that is so clear. Now, accountants do not have the easiest job. I'm talking to a room full of accountants here. I'm sure many of you agree. You tend to work very, very long hours. The job nature tends to be quite stressful as well. And when the remuneration does not commensurate with the work effort and the remuneration get affected by inflation on a regular basis, no wonder many are facing burnout. They're feeling burnout. They're saying, what's the point? And they are really experiencing mental well-being issues, and which, as you will remember, was the second topmost issue in our survey. And this finding was echoed throughout the survey in the various mental health-related questions. We put up a few statements, and we tried to see how strongly people agree with these statements. And you can see that there's very strong agreement with the statement, I would like a better work-life balance. I think that my mental health is suffering because of the work pressure. I would like more support from my organization in helping me manage my mental health. And when we look at the result from ASEAN, so this is the global result, when we look at the results from ASEAN, the feeling is even stronger. And when we do a deeper dive and analyze it by generation, again, you can see very clear trend. The younger generation, they are feeling all this mental health issue more intensely. So you can see over there, much more younger generation are saying, I want a better work-life balance, right? And they would like more support from the organization in managing their mental health. They are much more willing to come out and say, help me. So something for us to ponder upon, and maybe we can pick it up later during the panel discussion. But moving on a little bit to hybrid work versus work from home versus remote working. I did think that maybe this is a topic that we have discussed quite enough. We had a lot of conversation around this. But I feel compelled to bring you through this segment still, because this was one of the most surprising finding from our global survey. And I'll show you why. 57% of the global respondents are still fully office-based. And when it comes to ASEAN, it was closer to 60%, so even higher proportion. So all of us went through the recent pandemic, right? And as we know, this is called the big global experiment in remote working. And despite all of us, many of us having gone through that, it is quite surprising that not a huge group of the working population actually moved to at least a hybrid kind of work arrangement. But if you look at it analyzed by country, you can see that it is actually a wide variance in terms of the responses. So this was the one question where across different countries you get very different answers. So you have countries like Malaysia, which was quite similar to the global average. And then you have countries like Singapore, which was more like 50-50. Then you have countries like Vietnam, like Pakistan, Zimbabwe, and Hong Kong that has a much higher than global average proportion of working population fully office-based. And then you have some others like UK, Ireland, Canada that have decisively moved on to a remote working arrangement. And in a separate question that we asked, 87% of the global respondents told us that they would like to work at least one day per week from home. And when it comes to ASEAN, it was 89%. So globally 87, ASEAN 89%. And they're saying that they feel more productive at work when working remotely. They're saying they don't feel disconnected or disengaged from their manager when working remotely. But when it comes to the central question, do you find team collaboration harder? It was about 50-50. 50% said yes, 50% said no. And just to throw in a kind of bonus slide on another research, this is by Microsoft, looking at hybrid work, which was released late last year. You can see a very interesting dynamic here as well. So the hybrid workers, 87% of them say that they feel more productive at work. But how about the managers, the leaders? Only 12% of the leaders say that they have full confidence that their team is productive. So clearly there's a trust deficit over there that we need to think about. So we organized a series of roundtables around the world to support the research. And in most of the roundtable, we had very robust, passionate discussion about hybrid work versus work from home versus remote, versus 100% office working. And one of the participants in the Asia Pacific roundtable, she said this. She said it's so important to be very deliberate about creating all these opportunities for serendipity, right? When you're in an in-person working environment, you bump into your colleagues when you walk across the corridor, you bump into them in the toilet, standing next to them in the urinal, or you bump into them in the pantry when you're making coffee. And sometimes, you started talking, you start having all this conversation across function, and that may sometimes lead to very innovative, interesting conversation, collaborative ideas. And also, quite equally importantly, I would think, beyond the creative ideas and innovation, it is about having that human interaction that keeps us sane compared to an isolated situation. So when you are not working in office, how do you then create that kind of atmosphere? And I think all of us need to be quite deliberate in trying to design that. So let's talk a bit about technology. This morning we had a fantastic panel session that talks about technology. So I'm not going to go through this a lot more. We have been thinking about technology for a really long time. And of course, in the last 1 year-ish, I think technology has taken center stage again with a lot of conversation around AI, generative AI, AI governance, AI standards, and so on. So exactly what we heard this morning as well. Well, the good news from the ACCA Global Talent Trend Survey is that 95%, an overwhelming proportion of the survey respondents confirm or affirm that technology allows them to better value add to their organization, and for those who are working in professional services firms, to their clients as well. And they are all very enthusiastic about wanting to scale up. So a lot of them are asking their employers to give them more training opportunities around technology. On a slightly less positive note, you can also see that you have more than half of the respondents who are feeling overwhelmed by the pace of change in technology that are impacting their job, and also over half of them are concerned that technology will replace part or all of their role. And when we look at that particular question and analyzing it again, by generation group, you can see again quite clearly that the younger generation, they are more concerned about technology replacing their role than the older generation, which, to be honest, is a little bit counterintuitive. We all know that the younger generation, they are the digital native, right? So I still remember many years ago, about 10 years ago, my son, when he was still a toddler, we were having dinner and then we were watching TV after dinner. And then my son sort of suddenly stood up from the stool and he was like toddling towards the TV screen. And he started trying to swipe the TV screen. Unfortunately, it wasn't a smart touch screen TV, and therefore it didn't move according to his swipe. And he was so frustrated because he had expectation of technology, and that's not working out for him. So this is the digital native, right? And they come with expectation, and yet, they are very uncomfortable. So again, through the roundtable discussion, we had quite a bit of discussion around this, and a few possible reasons were offered during those discussions. One of which, and I think this is the narrative that many of us have heard, and I think coming through in the morning panel as well, which is that the younger generation, they're generally taking more junior operational role and therefore have a higher likelihood of being replaced by technology. But there's also another explanation that was offered, which was a little bit more scary, which is that the young people just understand technology better than us, and therefore they know the potential better than we do. But I want to just go back to that very positive affirmation that technology allows us to value add. And I think, again, something that came through very clearly from the roundtable, from the panel discussion in the morning, this survey respondents say technology allows accountants to achieve what they could only imagine in the past. The future is bright, the future is exciting for those who are imaginative and curious. Right? I always think of technology like the radioactive spider, right? They beat you and suddenly you can see further, you can hear better, okay? You can start spilling the web out, you can jump off the roof. Of course, we're not there to jump off the roof, but there are a lot of things that we did not used to be able to do, but technology has enabled that. Now, technology has always been discussed as one of the changing thing, the one that changed the landscape, making our profession a lot more attractive. But of course, whenever you have a gathering of accountants from different parts of the region, just like what we had in the last 2 days with the ASEAN Federation of Accountant Council meeting and strategy meeting, we are always talking about the attractiveness of the profession. And the next slide, I'm going to show you what's pushing the talent away. So converse to technology, what's really pushing the talents away? And you can see globally, the result shows stressful job role, long working hours, perceived as boring. So these were the top 3 results coming through globally. And for ASEAN, it was the same 3 top result, but even more people voted for these. And there were some interesting sectoral variants as well. For example, in Malaysia, just taking Malaysia as an example, when we look at just the big 4 respondents, 77% said the long working hours are the killer. Right? Nobody wants to come in because of the long working hours. And I guess many of you will be able to identify with that. So let's talk about mobility. This is one of my last segments here before we move to the main show, our panel discussion. So accountants, our professional accountants, our talent, they are very mobile. I often refer to my dad, who worked 40 years of his life in the same organization, 40 years in the same role before he retired a few years ago. And my father-in-law also 40 years lecturing on aero engineering, and he's still guest lecturing from time to time. So the talent today versus the talent during that era, they are quite different. They will look at what they are being offered. If they don't find what they want in their role today, if they don't find what they want in the organization they're working for today, they will very readily move on. And 66% of the global respondents are planning to change role within the next 2 years. So think about it, 66% within 2 years, they want to change role. And you see that when you cut across the different generation, the younger generation are even more mobile than the older generation. And this is an interesting cross-analysis that we did. As I mentioned, we put up a few statements and tried to see how strongly people agree with some of these statements. So these were some of the statements that we put up. Do you believe that your leaders have integrity? Do you believe your leaders are accessible? Do you think that your organization has an inclusive culture? Right, so what we've done here is to take those who agree or strongly agree, less of those who disagree or strongly disagree. So in a way, the percentage that you see up there represent the strength of the agreement. It's a proxy for the strength of agreement. And you can see a very interesting trend, which again is not surprising to see, but it's a very pronounced trend that you see here. And to summarize, basically, those who think that their leaders have integrity, are accessible, and the organization have an inclusive culture are much less inclined to leave quickly. So they tend to stay on a little bit more, right? And I want to draw your attention to the last one, which was, again, quite interesting, right? So those who actually see how their role contribute towards sustainability and addressing climate change issue, they are less inclined to leave quickly. And I think that is, again, consistent with a lot of the narrative around how green and climate is actually the next frontier, is actually the next one that actually gives meaning to our job and to our generation, right? So I thought this was quite interesting. And in terms of moving sector, so those respondents who want to move sector in their next move, just to show you, the most popular next destination are the big 4 firms and the large corporates. So of course here you have a little question around how about the smaller SMP, SME? How do they prove their value? How do they retain and attract staff? So that's something to think about. And then the next slide, this is around international mobility. So as we all know, accounting is the international language. It's a global language. Generally, someone who is trained, a professional accountant, you can bring them up, put them into another jurisdiction, and generally they can plug and play. So that's the beauty of our profession. So as long as there's no artificial barrier, this is something that's achievable. So globally, one third of the global respondents are looking at relocation in their next career move. And for ASEAN, it is a smaller proportion, it is 1/5, right? And the most popular destination for ASEAN respondents are Singapore, UK, and Australia. And I think, in the earlier opening speech, we heard the Secretary General of ASEAN talking about free flow of talent being one of the key objectives of ASEAN. So definitely, within our profession, we can achieve that. So this is one of my last slides. The profession today allows very much a choose your own adventure. I think the opportunities that are made available to the profession are vast and exciting, especially compared to 20, 30 years ago when I started. And the sectoral mobility that we saw, the international mobility that we saw, these are great for the profession. What you, as business and finance leader, offer to your staff is not just a job. It is a platform to upskill, to train them so that they can better contribute to the current organization, to the next organization, to society at large. I think the public value, public interest aspect of our profession is just fascinating. It's just fantastic, right? And I think this is something which is the premise, the trust that we inspire. And the challenge, of course, is to crack that talent code. How do we address some of the challenges that came through the survey? And this is where I'm going to ask my panel to help me address. But before that, let me just show you another slide. Okay, this went viral a few years ago. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this. Have you seen this before? No? Okay. The question is, how many circles can you see on the screen? Can you see circle? I heard someone say 28. Okay, I see some people nodding. I see some very confused faces as well. When this came through a few years ago, I remember I was in office and I was, intrigued because I couldn't see any circle. And I was asking around, I was asking my colleagues, and almost all of them didn't see anything for a long time until somebody finally saw it. And I brought it home, and then I showed it to my 2 daughters who were at home at that time. And then they said, oh yeah, the circles are right there, right? And then I asked my wife didn't see anything, right? It's all square. And then my son came through the door, he just reached home. I said, can you see circles? How many are there? He started counting, 1, 2, 3. So I'm not suggesting that young folks are smarter. No, not that. But I think they're wired a little bit differently, and they're thinking a little bit differently. So this came from another participant in the Asia Pacific Roundtable. Young people are different, right? They bring different things to the table, right? They are entrepreneurial. If you're only involving them in routine work, you're just missing the opportunity to leverage on their talent. So again, something for us to really think about, and something that I'll be keen to get our panelists to explore. So just putting up the top 7 themes that came through the report. You can download it from the website. You can go to our ACCA Insights app to look at all the professional insights work on the go. I've gone through 1 to 5 quite quickly, and then the rest are there as well. So with that, thank you so much for your attention. Let me now draw your attention to our stars of the show, our panelists. Thank you. Thank you so much. Panelists, sorry to make you wait so long. Yes?
Before we start the session, so where's the circle?
Okay, let me go back. Oh, okay, the screen is gone. I will show. So, can anyone see the circle?
No, I think it's pretty similar to the others.
So some people saw it.
Okay.
And I'm not, I think I'm being a bit prejudiced here, but I think the younger people seem to see the circle better. I don't know. Yeah, but I'll show you off the stage, okay? All right, thank you so much. And let me start. Sorry to make you wait so long, but I'm so keen to come to our panel discussion, my dear panelists. And we have a few questions that we have prepared, and then we'll be discussing them. But I'm also very, very keen to get participation from the audience. So I know that online audience, you're able to send your question online. That's great. We look forward to seeing them. But for those who are in the audience, I understand the arrangement is that you can actually write down your question and pass it to the staff that are running around. So pass it to them, and they'll type it out on the screen for us. Make sure that the font is big enough for us to see, okay, but not too big that we need to scroll through. Okay, so let me start with the just opening warm-up question. We had all of you introduced onto the stage earlier, but maybe just also given this opportunity to share a little bit more about who you are, where you come from, and when you talk about this topic, what is your motivation, what is your background, right? And also, I want you to also talk about the one thing from the ACCA Global Talent Trend Survey that is most important or most interesting from your perspective. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to start from my extreme left. the lady in red, Joe.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jill Santos, and I am from Philippines. I'm speaking before you on a standpoint as number one, as IFAC representative, IFAC, International Federation of Accountants, being a member of the Professional Accountancy Organization Development and Advisory Group. And I'd like to recognize that we have someone here from IFAC itself, in the person of Tanya. Tanya, are you here? Yeah, Tanya is here. And my second standpoint will be reflective, being myself as a founder and a CEO of a medium-sized practice firm in the Philippines. I have 5 offices around the country, so it means that later on, as we move along the discussion, I would be sharing with you how I deal with inflation, the cost of living as far as employees are concerned, because I have people down south of Mindanao, so these different areas, and also in the capital city of Philippines. And last but not the least is on standpoint as being an entrepreneur myself. So these 3 would be my standpoints as we move along in our discussion this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Joe. So I think Joe is being a little bit humble because of the limitation of time. She didn't list out everything that she does. I always ask her, and I track her on LinkedIn. She's everywhere, right? One week one place, another week another place. I was like, do you have a cloning machine that we can borrow maybe to help us? But Joe, just coming back to you as well, is that from the other headlines, everything that I've shared about the presentation, about the ACCA survey, what is the one thing that is most important or most surprising from your perspective?
It's not more about surprising, it's more about the important one, the key takeaway. On a standpoint as a representative of IFAC, IFAC really has this huge discussion at its level about the attractiveness of the accountancy profession, and we are very keen on emphasizing that as accountants, we should be very conscious about our brand and our narratives, and that is that we work with purpose and we are a force for good. We all know that as accountants, we have this public interest mandate, and our mandate is to ensure that there's protection and general welfare of the mandate. We are dealers, brokers, and channels of trusts. And with this recent study of ACCA, oh, by the way, Chun, I forgot to emphasize on this, that ACCA is a very valued member of IFAC. I can see a lot of their involvement in different advisory groups of IFAC. In fact, I have one colleague in the IFAC PAUDAG who is also from ACCA. And this is worth noting, and I think we owe a big round of applause to ACCA because their study was mainly used during the CEO Forum last February in New York City, in the headquarters of IFAC. So friends, can we give big applause to ACCA? They've done a great job, and that's precisely the reason why we're so fortunate that we are having this conversation in front of you. So it's basically like I can resonate on the information that you've shared earlier on the satisfaction of the remuneration, satisfaction of the job versus the remuneration, and it's quite very we have to be pragmatic about it. It's understandable that there's not that much gap when people working in a nonprofit and people who are entrepreneurs themselves or are self-employed. If only we go back to the narratives or the branding that we as accountants, we work for purpose and we are a force for good, I think we should highlight on something intrinsic value that we can provide, not just on our personal need, on our professional need, but also on the need of humanity. That's all that I can share, Chun.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. And I think we work very closely together because our objective is aligned, right? The vision, the public interest is the public interest angle is really aligned and therefore very supportive. So thank you so much for acknowledging that, Joe. And I'll be coming back to you later on to ask you a little bit more about IFAC initiatives around talent as well. So I'm going to jump around. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. My mic is acting up a little bit. But I'm going to jump around a little bit. So let me jump to Park Ardan next. So Park Ardan, tell us about yourself and what is the one thing that is most surprising or important from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear moderator and all the panelists here. My name Ardan Adiperdana. I am the president of Institute of Indonesian Chartered Accountant, IAI. And if we talk the topic about the talent, I guess I belong to baby boomers generation, so a little bit different. And I have more than 35 years practicing as a professional accountant, working with the government. And I'm proud to be chartered accountant for Indonesia, and also privileged as event this morning, privileged to be nominated by Indonesian Chartered Accountant to be incoming AFA Deputy President.
Congratulations, Park.
Thank you. And regarding the survey, ACCA survey, as I mentioned earlier, I belong to baby boomers. Then for me, technology is something that has to be highlighted by our generation, so we can understand how they, interestingly, say something about the picture. I can see anything about circle. So it's explained that why we are different in generation.
Thank you, Park. And that explains why we need to work together, because different people see different things, right? So together we see everything. That's quite important. Great, thank you so much. Kun Suchada, coming to you.
Thank you, Chun. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suchada. I am an audit partner from EY Thailand. I have been practicing as a public accountant for 23 years now. Back in year 2006, I had an opportunity to work for EY Sydney for 18 months. And then after that, in year 2012, I was seconded to Singapore to work on an accounting advisory project for one of our clients in Singapore. Before I move on to the other matters of the talk, I just would like to thank you, ACCA, for inviting me to be on stage today. It's quite an interesting topic among the partner, especially in my firms and my colleagues, discussing about the talent and the things that we would like to see in the future. And the change is very quick, so we need to be prepared and understand the difference between the generations. Okay. At the moment I work, I'm overseeing the clients in infrastructure business and real estate investment trust, and also look after the clients in IPO arena as well. These responsibility actually gave me a chance to get the insight into the challenges and also the opportunity that working in these professions. Okay. One of the key takeaway and the findings that we found from the ACCA report is that actually the hybrid working is something is still work in progress. So the difference between the perception of the two sides of the parties, the employees and the employers, I think it's no surprise to us that the younger generation, they prefer to work remotely and have like a very flexible mode. So they have their own space to decide when to work, and given that they have like kind of things that they have to take care on their personal time. So the flexibility gives them a chance to at the same time handle their own personal issue and also the works. On the other hand, their supervisor, the employers are worried about the productivity. So this is something that actually relates directly to me, because I personally, myself, I enjoy doing work at home because it gives me space, and also I think I appreciate the seamlessly when I move from one meeting to another meeting without the time spent on the logistic side. It's very efficient. However, on the other hand, I found that I lost the connection with my teams, I didn't really understand their need that much. And at the same time, in terms of serving my client as well, if you keep working on remotely, didn't get chance to talk to your client in person, I think sometimes the audit career, I mean the audit procedure, sometimes you need to meet the client in face to make sure that you get the right information and reading the body language, something like that. So I think we need to make sure that as an employer or the supervisor, we need to make the balance between the two parties involved. I think we still have a lot of work to do around better communication and also to gain understanding of different needs on the different times of the during the work. So that is something I find very interesting.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Suchada. I think that's really helpful to know. And I was just wondering whether the traffic in Thailand is one of the reasons.
Yes, of course. This
As
morning
well.
I was held up on the street in front of the malls for like half an hour.
I know, we were like, is she coming? Yeah, but I think that's just really helpful, and we'll be keen to talk a little bit more about that. You know, how do you make hybrid or remote or fully work from office really work in the face of the expectation by our talents as well? So thank you for that, for kicking us off on that bit. So finally, but of course not least, coming to Kunaluckkul.
Hello ครับ
Yes, working. Okay.
สวัสดีครับ Hello ครับ สวัสดีครับ Good afternoon. I'm Supachate, or you can call me Cook. That is easy for you to call me. Right now, I'm the advisory partner in KPMG Thailand. Actually, I have been working in KPMG for 21 years. That less than you, right? For you for 23. So it means that I have. Okay, right. So right now I work for the 21 years, and back to the year 2002, that is the first day I work in KPMG. I think that at that time it's the best place to work in KPMG in Thailand. And 10 years ago, I have a chance to rethinking about this, right? At that time, I'm thinking that, I need to have the opportunity to find the new opportunity, to find something that may be better at that time. And good luck in KPMG, we have the mobility program that is a good program to offer the staff that need to explore new opportunity to go abroad, to go in the other country. For me, it's good for us to work in around the world. For me, I work in KPMG China office in year 2011 to 2013 for 2 years at KPMG China. That is the big opportunity for me to challenge me to do the different things, not only for the audit work, but we need to do the advisory work, the business development work, something like that. And when I came back to KPMG in Thailand again, after 2 years in China, I need to adapt and adjust myself from China to Thailand again. And I moved the work from audit to the advisory work to support all of the client, most of the client that totally different from audit. We need to support the client in the risk consulting, management consulting, deal advisory, financial advisory, or even accounting advisory. At that time, when I moved from the audit to advisory, the key thing that I'm thinking that it's very challenging me is about I need to develop ourselves, to build our credential, to build our trust from the public and also from the client. So at that time, I'm thinking that, hey, accountant is not only an accounting. We need to equip and update our skill set not only for the accounting, but we need to fulfill our skill set to the other areas such as for the finance, for the legal, for the management perspective, and also for the other thing, even for the IT or the digital that we need to adjust ourselves to work in every day and in every life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kunaluckkul. And that is a great sort of summary of what actually an accountant really needs to do. It's not just about accounting knowledge. I think we have always known that, but I think you just sort of explained it very well for all of us. So between my panel, we have experiences in Philippines, Australia, Singapore, Thailand, China, Indonesia. So I'm sure that will come through later on in the conversation as well. So really looking forward. And let me just maybe stay with Suchada and then Kunaluckkul first. coming from your firm's perspective, and then later I'll go to IFAC and then IAI. Okay, so we saw just now the key concern that people have are around inflation, stress, mental well-being, and so on. And so, they are not living the kind of life that they thought they would be living. So how do you, as leaders within a firm, keep your young talent engaged and motivated so they don't actually end up quiet quitting? I'm not sure how many of you have heard of the term quiet quitting. So it was a phenomenon that I think predominantly coming from China, it started, but a lot of us are seeing that in our young talents as well. It's a sort of give up kind of phenomenon, right? I can't get what I want, I don't see the future, I'm just going to do the bare minimum. So how do you sort of engage them, keep them motivated so they don't just quit? Okay, so let me just go to Kun Suchada first.
Okay. Hello. Okay, sure. I think one of the key findings from the survey is that the younger generation, they are worried about the cost of living. I think the pressures around the inflation actually get them worried about their future, whether or not they can having the life that they wish to have. I think this kind of worry actually is not unique to us. You can find this factor, the fear actually spread across different professions as well. On the other hand, our profession, accounting and accountant, actually, our profession actually can offer some of sense of the stability, because during these uncertain periods, they still need accountant to help them to manage. To help the business managing all the financials and make sure that the company actually on track. So I would say that the stability of our profession, even though we don't really offer the sexiest package among different professions, but I would believe that the stability of the works in the market actually provides some of the comfort and relief to the younger generation. However, even though I said that, I believe that by just only having the stability, it doesn't mean that we can overlook the other important aspect of the job. We still need to focus on the well-being of our staff. We still need to make sure that we equip them with the various skills that they would like to have. So we need to take further step in handling that. One of the things that I found is very one of the avenue that I found is just very important and maybe can resonate with the participant and delegates here is that the mentorship program between, if the company or the firm, the corporates or the companies that you are working for establish like a mentorship program to allow the younger generation to have a chance to chat with the experienced professionals in the firm to discuss about their worries, and I think it's give them a chance to see into the future on how they would like to progress in the accounting career that they are handling now. So like on my personal note, during the early career of myself, I found that I was struggling because I couldn't handle the pressures like from the responsibilities. I'm not too sure about my capabilities. I would need to handle the expectation from my boss, from my clients. I think that time is very challenging to me, but I was fortunate enough to have a person like a mentor from my firm. She actually gave me advice and support during the difficult times. So that allows me to excel through the difficult times like that. So I last long in the career until now. So I appreciate the experience and advice from the mentor. So this is something that you might need to, as a leader in the organization, I think you need to set aside the times of your schedule every day, need to sit down and talk to your younger generation, because I think it's very good that we have been through that before, so we can extend our help and guidance to those young generation. I think we can't, in everyone's mind, I think we work hard, we work long hours. We can't really pay it until we match the efforts that they paid, but at least I think we offer the help and guidance for them so they can excel through the challenging times.
Thank you so much, Kun Suchada. And I'm sure your sharing resonated a lot with many in the audience as well. And actually, at the very beginning, you actually helped me address one of the key themes from the survey, which I didn't have time to cover, which is the key attraction factor, and stability was actually one of that. But you're absolutely right. I was going to ask you a follow-up question, because stability is just stability. What beyond that? And you were very right to point out, you need to think about the mental health and so on. And actually, mentorship program, and the way you describe it is perfect, because mentorship program is actually available and present in many organizations, but they do not necessarily work well. In our conversation with some junior staff and with some leaders, they're saying you need to, again, be quite deliberate about designing it, making sure that people are equipped to actually handle that kind of conversation. So you need to train the trainer a little bit as well. So thank you for sharing. Kunaluckkul, come to you.
Okay. For me, in KPMG Thailand, actually we have the staff more than 2,000 people that come from many skill sets, many country, many nationality, or many language, and even many etc. So the key thing of the management to manage all of the staff is I understand that all of us have only one goals or only one objective in each company, right? So the challenging is how to manage all of the people to achieve the one goal with different characteristics. So in KPMG, actually we have the concept that we call DEI, that you understand that you quite a lot of understand this, because of DEI is come from the diversity, equity and inclusion. So when we talk about the diversity, it means that we need to manage the differentiate of the people, not only for the physical difference, but we need to think about the mental differentiate, something like that. So this is the diversification. So another thing is about the equity that I mentioned before, that we need to equip all of our staff to achieve only one goal of the company, right? To manage the goal setting, something like that. And finally, it's about the inclusion. The inclusion is about how to manage and how to include all of the people in the office to have the same activity, to have the same process, to achieve the goal also. So it means that when we talk about the DEI in KPMG Thailand, we starting from the alphabet I, or inclusion, because we believe that if we can gather all of the staff, all of the people into same direction, into same goal, it means that all of our staff can understand the goal of the company or the goal of the organization. So we have many activities, we have many programs to include all of our people into one goal, such as let me explain that, because of when we talk about the inclusion, we need to make sure that all of the staff have the opportunity to speak up. So we call that we have the speak up culture. Such as when we need some kind of the staff discussion in KPMG Thailand right now, most of our office is called the co-working space. We did not have any the fixed table. We did not have any the partner room, something like that. So it means that it's easy for all of us to communication together. If someone need to talk with partner, someone need to talk with manager, they can easy to access to talk with them. So it means that we can understand them in quickly and turn their need to the action plan in the easy way, right? This is some kind of the inclusion. Once we understand their need and include them into all activity of our firm, the next thing that we're going to do is about the equity. When we talk about the equity in KPMG, it means that we need to have the environment to all of them to set the goal with the same goal for the KPMG, such as we need to do something about the equity process to make sure that they understand the same goal. For the last one, it's about how to inclusion. The inclusion is about the include all of the people into the same activity, into the same goal. So how to include all of the people for 200 people, 2,000 people, it's not easy for us, right? So we need to think about how to manage these people into the same direction because of this is the key challenge of our firm in this way.
Thank you so much, Kunaluckkul. How do you actually usher everyone towards that same goal, right? And having that alignment. And you mentioned speak up culture. I think that's really interesting. A lot of I think, we're from Southeast Asia, and I think there's one perception that people from Southeast Asia are generally more shy, not willing to speak up. So how do you actually quite actively promote that kind of culture? You mentioned that there's no partners room. Did you say that?
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Right. It's a part of the co-working space.
Right, interesting. I remember when I was a little boy auditor, in order to see the partner, you have to go in and then they're all, wooden panel, and you can't really see inside. And then you want to talk to the partner, you have to check with the secretary, what is the weather today? Is the partner in a good mood or not so good mood? Okay, that's so we actually I saw a question, actually this is from online, and maybe you can weave it into your sharing later on, Joe and Park. How does the accountancy profession compete to attract the best talent with other professions that offer better financial package? And I think, Kun Suchada and Kunaluckkul mentioned a few initiatives from their firm. So Joe, I want to come to you to talk about IFAC initiative. I think in a way that will sort of like talk about how do you make this profession attractive, and it's not just about money. Money is very important, but beyond that, how do you attract people? So maybe coming to you first to talk about IFAC initiative quite briefly, because we do have some PAOs in the room who will be interested to hear about that, and of course the wider profession.
All right, thanks, Chun. So IFAC is undertaking a very laudable strategic initiatives, and one of which, a lot of initiatives actually, but what's very impressive as far as I'm concerned here is the creation of the Attractiveness of the Profession Hub. And that is a resource center of IFAC that will help a lot the POs, the firms, and the professional accountants, because these materials here that you can see will be really revolve around the issues of the challenges and the opportunities of the accounting talent pipeline. Now, IFAC is focusing on 3 different areas, okay? In the efforts of enhancing the attractiveness of the profession. First is engaging young talent. The second one is embracing technology. And the third one is emphasizing the very dynamic nature of our profession. Now, I can cite some specific examples for you to better appreciate. And I know that from IFAC level down to the PEO and down to the firms, big, small, medium, big firms, you can have a takeaways out of this. And maybe some of you are already doing this. And I can also cite some PEOs in the course of my engagements and visiting and meeting a lot of PEOs in the region and outside the region. So IFAC has the summer internship program. And just recently, it ended last August. And we accommodated 9 interns. Now, it's in our headquarters in New York City. Now, towards the end of the program, there was this presentation. There was this conversations with the interns. So to better appreciate what will be the insights that IFAC can get out of it, because it's really a first-hand experience with them. Now, some of the interns were telling IFAC that, they're very good in mathematics, and with that, they're very good also in making informed decisions, well-calculated decisions, because to some extent, they realize on that based on their interactions in the internship program. I can cite a PEO that's doing a great job in this particular space as well. ICCA, for example, it's very laudable for them to be able to set aside a 1 million SGD fund, really focusing on attractiveness of the profession. By next year, they're launching catering, embracing 300. These are not CPAs yet, these are students who are embarking to take up accountancy course when they go to college. 300 young individuals from different countries, and they're focusing mainly within the region. And I would want to emphasize this, especially with the leaders of the PEO, to please send This is a bit competitive selection process, but we're giving chances of our young talents in our jurisdictions for them to be able to have this week-long immersion free of charge, all expense paid by ICCA. As far as Japanese Institute of CPAs Accountants are concerned as well, I know that they are having this very laudable initiative as well, sending young CPAs, these are CPAs already, from Japan to Singapore, and again, I'd like to commend Singapore for accepting such kind of a partnership. They'll be sending, I think, 20 young CPAs from different firms across small, medium, and large firms. They will also do a week-long immersion in Singapore. They will be mentored firsthand by whoever ICCA will be providing them. I am an advocate of mentorship. I have a foundation that I founded 10 years ago with my daughter when she was still 10 years old. And I really see the value, the powerful value of mentorship. And we mentor young girls to become leaders and entrepreneurs of the future. But mentorship is everywhere. We can do mentorship within our firm, be it small, medium, and large. I appreciate Suchada was sharing that earlier. So this initiative of IFAC, going back to IFAC, the concrete example, and also the PEOs, this is on the space of engaging young talents. On the space of embracing technology, I was in Vienna, Austria last week attending the IFAC Council meeting, and there's a very nice presentation about AI. I know that some of you might ask, is AI a threat to us? Will we be replaced by AI? Now, the very core foundation that you should somehow give consolation to yourself is that AI will never replace us. AI will help us. It's like a revolutionary part of this era that will really help us do the repetitive work, the tasks really that do not need further analysis, that will come up with more accuracy. But know that at the end of the day, decision-making process and the personal interactions with people and our clients still remain in us. So AI is never a threat to us. So IFAC was sharing us how AI instead can help us. And I was a bit surprised listening to the speaker when he was telling me he was sharing this sample document, a 400-page document. And in just one type of a question of what you want out of that document, you will see everything there that you want. But then again, what will be the answers out of that ChatGPT will also be defined or will be shaped on how you custom fit your question. So again, we will never be replaced by AI, but instead, IFAC now is telling the PO to leverage ChatGPT, to leverage AI. There's a lot of channels or platform there, so that in the course of our work, as we manage the professional accountancy organization, or even in the firms, or even in our day-to-day living as we do our professional practice, we have an aid, we have a help. By just putting a question, we really don't need to read the whole 400-page document for us to be able to get an answer out of it. And the last thing is the emphasizing of the dynamic nature of our profession. We are very much sure that if we have high standards of education, that if we are well-trained, as far as our profession is concerned, then the more we get to have that credibility, that trust, as far as the public is concerned, on the perception as to what we can contribute. And note that accountancy profession is a very relevant, we're part of the ecosystem, relevant in nation building across the world. So we will never be replaced. We will remain to be very important. And we should take pride that accountancy profession is the most global profession in the world.
Thank you so much, Joe. Accountants proud, right? So that's really great, and thank you for underscoring that continued relevance. We'll forever be relevant in this world. It's just evolving, and we don't want to do the work of an accountant 20 years ago, and we wouldn't want to do the same job that we're doing today 20 years later as well. Interestingly, you talk about ChatGPT. We had two big roundtables recently to talk about our most recent, the next iteration of Global Talent Trend. And there was this huge transcript that was produced by it. I was like, okay, I need the gist out of it. I actually plug it into ChatGPT. And you have to try a few times, you need to ask the right question. And it actually gave you a really, really nice summary, which was helpful. I was just reviewing it before I came out on stage. So thanks for raising that point. Park, I'm going to come to you next. And there's actually one more question that is very relevant to you, probably having heard your experience. You know, we have an audience who say, would the key findings from the study resonate with those in the public sector, including government institutions? So we'll be keen to hear your views on that, on top of what ERE is doing.
Thank you, Chun. Yeah, it was indeed unfortunate that Indonesia could not contribute more significantly during this survey.
Next time.
Next time. Thank you. Generally speaking, the results of the study resonate, the situation in Indonesia. I just want to, point to the remuneration. Sure, I want to share something in the Indonesian context and the public sector perspective. As you may know, that the professional accountant in the government of Indonesia, there are all disbursed in at least 3 institutions. The first one is Supreme Audit Institution, Auditor General, external audit to the government. The second one, that's the internal government auditor, internal audit. The third one, things like financial statement of the government, preparer of the financial statement, and also during that line is probably, because it's under Ministry of Finance, is tax auditor. Tax auditor. In Indonesia, there is right now bureaucracy reform that all institutions assessed by independent teams to get the score, that after achieving certain score, then they can apply to increase the remuneration. And right now, Ministry of Finance, tax auditor, preparer of financial statement, is got the highest remuneration. Then also the Supreme Audit Institution, the auditor of Supreme Audit Institution, is also got the higher, remuneration. And that's why all the entry-level professional accountant right now is eager, want to be accepted in that institution. A lot of, my relatives that work for, sorry I should say that, PwC, then he went out and go to the public sector because of that. So remuneration is, top attraction factor. And what EI is doing right now, we do these things like aspiring APA Festival, Aspiring Professional Accountant Festival, that we do it with the student so that the student have the opportunity to get the contact with the industry and to have, the explanation about the career opportunity and pathway, and further encourage them to be professional accountant. And also the APA Festival also have the opportunity for them to showcase their ability to enter the workforce. Things like that.
Thank you so much, Park. And it's just interesting to hear the government's paying more than commercial. And it's, I think, happening in some other jurisdiction as well. I think Brunei as well, we were talking about it the other day. And that's clearly one key attraction factor. But also, I think working in the public sector, you're part of the nation building. You're contributing directly. So I'm sure that's also one of the meaning and that people are looking for
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing more about the festival for the aspiring accountant. Actually, that reminds me of a conversation from that roundtable that I was talking about. And one of them was academia. And she was like, if she feels that the best way to encourage the student to think about that profession is to have people who are in the profession coming in to talk. And some academia, they had practical experience, but maybe a few years old. And having someone who's current coming in, actually she finds always, invigorate the whole conversation. So that's really interesting. Great, so let me move on a little bit. And Kun Suchada, you mentioned, you started the conversation around hybrid. And I'll be keen to hear from the other panelists as well. So one of the findings that we saw, obviously, was many companies are still moving people fully back to office. So why are employers afraid to move to hybrid, right? And maybe in your experience, what are the key ingredients to making hybrid working work? Okay, so let me maybe pose that question over to you. And also more broadly, pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic, how has the talent management approach changed for you? Okay, maybe I'll start with Kunaluckkul, and then Joe, I'll come to you next.
Okay. Yeah. I think the key thing to do the work, the hybrid working arrangement is we need to make sure that how to manage the balancing between the working the outcome of the work and the staff well-being, right? When we talk about the staff well-being, it's not only the physical well-being, but we need to think more about the mental well-being also, right? In KPMG Thailand, we have the wording work-life integration that I think is similar with the work-life balance, but in the meaning balance of the wording balance is for the balancing of each individual people, I think, and I believe that is not equal, right? Someone need to work maybe more than 20 hours per day. Someone need to work only 8 hours per day, something like that. But we need the same goal that all of the work need to complete at the deadline time. So we have the program that flexibility to allow all of our staff to work in anywhere, but in the security area, something like that. So it means that we allow all of staff to working this. But the other challenging thing is about how to monitoring them in the work hybrid working arrangement, because of if we monitoring them too little or too much, it means that we may be focusing on the monitoring too much. So it means that we need to balancing how to monitoring them in the right way in the generation gap, because of in the older people, such as all of us, something like that, need to maybe work from the physical working, but for the younger generation, they maybe prefer work in the hybrid working or work from home or work from anywhere, something. So we need to balancing it and monitoring it in the right way.
Right. And you're talking about monitoring, and you cannot over-monitor as well, because there will be a trust challenge, right? You are not trusting me, and therefore you're watching over my head all the time. I mean, that's going to be a big challenge, right? So how do you balance that? Joe, any inputs on that question?
Okay, on the first question as to why we're as an employer or whoever will be in the same position of mine, I'm afraid of doing this hybrid mode. So I was telling Chun earlier that my company, we have 5 offices in the Philippines. We don't have remote work system. We all do on-site work. And interestingly, we had this survey within the firm, and it's really the employees wish to really do on-site work. Maybe because they were so tired of doing this work from home arrangement during COVID. And, but to me, really personally, I really don't mind. I'm one person who is more keen on results-driven approach, okay? But while we don't have, why people would want to do on-site work and they don't do remote work, we're open to it for as long as they abide by our policies and procedures, because we have the policy in the firm that should you want to work from home for whatever reason, which we approve, then you need to submit to the firm an output report. Okay, it's like when we do overtime. We do overtime requests. Once approved, we submit overtime output report. So we do request to work from home, and we submit a work from home output report. But I don't have trust issues with my employees, because from the very beginning, when we admit our employees, we have a mantra in the firm, and it's part in our policy and in our HR manual: an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. And once you're able to inculcate that in the heart and in the mind of our employees, you would never have trust issues on your people. And that's the way how I do things.
Honest day work for an honest day pay. And I think one of the points that you raised is actually quite interesting, because you actually survey your employees and they say they want on-site work. And this came through in the roundtable discussion as well, because sometimes employers will just embark on certain initiative based on what we old people think will work. And actually, this may not be what the young folks want or what your talent wants. So actually really having an open ear, listening up, having a speak up culture, these are all really important, so that you make sure that what you have is tailored to the needs and the wants of your people, right? Okay, great. And I see that there's some questions that are popping up on the screen. So again, we only have about 15 minutes left. If you have questions, please hand it over to our staff, and then they'll get it typed out. They're typing it very slowly, though. So I have a question from audience. I still don't see the question, so we'll come to that later on. But Suchada and Park, do you have anything that you want to contribute to that question? Anything you want to add?
Can I
Yep,
add
sure.
a quick one? Actually, during the past year, one of my middle manager, she actually came to my office and asked whether or not I can help her with expressing a very clear direction on whether or not she can work like in the office or going home and do the work, and also can I deliver that message to her team's members as well. I think it seems to me that the problem around the middle management is that they can't really decide by themselves whether or not they should implement which strategy, whether or not asking the team to come to the office or allow them to work from home. I think one of the key elements that we can implement and make sure that the hybrid does work is that we need to have a clear direction from the top as well, that what are the expectations, and agree upon the performance and the productivity, the things that we actually didn't have to say in the past, we have to say now. Otherwise, people would be in a very confusing mode, because they are not too sure that what the boss is expecting, and they themselves need to manage the team as well.
Right.
So make sure that your teams are clear on the direction. And I think another things that we need to take care is that the flexibility means it can be changed. I think because when we serve the clients sometimes they would like us to be on site. Some they don't. So I think I have clearly, I'll tell myself that I need to clearly communicate with my team to make sure that we release the pressures on the middle management and make sure that the whole team are on the same page. I think that might be another key that how the hybrid working mode it does work in the real life.
Excellent. Reduce or eliminate ambiguity to the
Yes,
extent
exactly.
possible. And I think maybe there's a little bit, sometimes a social stigma with working from home. What are you doing at home, right? So I think the top will have to have a very clear message on what is the expectation. And to Joe's earlier point, you look at the results. So how do you track the result, right? So I think that's very important. Park, do you want to add on anything?
Yeah, in the public sector in Indonesia, I guess if we talk about the employer, then that's somebody that different generation, right? Because the younger generation has to be on the entry level. That's why sometimes there is a conflict because if somebody says that hybrid is in progress, then actually in Indonesia, in public sector, hybrid working is not going to work because what? Because as a employer, the higher rank in the government, then require the younger generation go to the office, work in the office. That's the normal kind of work in the government. So things like there is trust, cultural differences here. And sometimes if the younger generation is eligible to work at home, then they have to use the application that his subordinate, the boss has to know the exact location of the,
I think that's
That's
speaking
why.
to the clarity as well,
yes,
right? Yeah.
that's why in the public sector,
Right.
a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Park. Okay, so the question finally came out. It said, Chun, we Adeline want to ask live. So can we maybe pass the mic to Adeline? Yeah, okay. Oh, you already have the mic.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm ready. Oh, okay. Good afternoon to all. I'm Adeline, as everyone knows. I have a question. Because we talk about AI, how younger generation worry about AI. We talk about talent mobility as well. We focus so much on the youngsters. I'm just wondering, I'd like to ask the panelists, or maybe the moderator as well, what can we do to actually retain and appreciate all our senior leaders or elder generations to continue contribute in this profession so that they retire by age, but not by knowledge and experience? Or maybe to baby boomers, how would you like to be appreciated to continue contribute in this profession? Thank you.
Interesting question. Thanks, Adeline. Now we have maybe just 8 minutes left for the panel. So let's try to address this question. I don't know, anyone want to volunteer? You can pick any one of a question and address it. So I think it's more, we talk about talent, attraction and retention, we tend to focus on the younger generation. And people are leaving longer, they're retiring later. How do you make sure that you're retaining them and using them, using them seems to be the wrong word, but leveraging on their expertise and experience in the right way? Any suggestion? Okay.
Okay, actually for this point, I think it's a very good point that you mentioned. Because of in every organization, we have many differentiated people, right? In KPMG also, we have more than 2,000 people. So we have from the alpha gen to the baby boomer, that for the baby boomer that you quite familiar with, they're not familiar with the IT or digital that we call that, how to say, technophobia, something like that, right? So it means that in KPMG, we not put too much for them to do the digital, but we try to, how to say, to manage them, to familiar with the new digital, because of we believe that if we put too much for the weakness of there, it means that we some kind of push the damage to them. So it means that we need to manage the strength of them. For the younger generation, we manage the strength of them for the digital, for the IT, for the technology. But for the older people, we need to manage them for all the strength of their, such as they have maybe strength for the analytical, they have the strength for the physical, blah, blah, something like that. So it means that for the different people, we need to manage all of them in the different way and not put them too much on the weakness of them. Yep, right.
Thank you, Kunaluckkul. Anyone else? Okay. Park?
Yeah, in my experience, this is a difficult part when, wants to bridge elder generation with young generation. And from the point of view of organization, probably we have to recognize the experience and expertise of senior talent. That's one thing, and it is difficult, to convince the younger generation because the challenge ahead is different from the elder generation. But it's to the point where this is important because recognizing experience, expertise of senior talents that's can, build the things like trust each other, probably, something like that. Yeah. And also, the organization has to fostering the culture and continuous learning and collaboration. So put the younger generation in the same teamwork, then they can communicate each other. Then it can help reduce conflict, things like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Park.
If I may add, okay, on the question of Adeline, why we're putting so much focus on these young talents. So maybe we will dichotomize these different gens. Now we have baby boomers, then the X gen, the Y gen, the Z gen. I belong, by the way, I'm proud to say that I belong to the X gen. Okay, the Y gen known to be the millennials, but to me, there's a lot of questions like I myself would ask, why is it that mental health issues are just so prevalent and so in a buzzword in today's world, right? Mainly because if we come to think of it, when we speak about millennials, they are considered the young adults, and young adults would comprise ages between 18 to 29. And science study would say that these young adults are still within their cognitive development stage, meaning they're still trying to decipher some things and on how they react and interact with external factors. And studies also shows that the Generation Z would normally work in an employer or in an organization on an average of 2 years and 3 months, while the Y gen or the millennials would have like 6 months more. So because of these prevalent issues on how we can keep them, because at the end of the day, my perspective as an employer, 3 things: we attract, we develop, and we retain people. And circling about these issues about attracting, development, and retaining people, these are the issues that we need to address. Okay, how can we retain them when we know for a fact that Gen Z would only last with us for the next 2 years and 3 months? And how do we address? Unfortunately, in my case, I don't have baby boomers in my company. So I'm the X, so we have X, Y, and Z. So I think and I believe that's the very main reason why we're putting so much discussion and so much buzz about about these young talents.
But you said, fortunately, you don't have baby boomers in your office.
I don't have baby boomers. But I'm not saying, this is not in a negative way, but I know for a fact, because, I don't know, this is not to brag, but a lot of people would tell me that I have a very high sense of emotional protection. And so I really can relate to people of different ages, because at the end of the day, I'm very keen that everything is about relationship.
Yeah.
Okay? And I will always keep telling to my people and to everyone that talent will get us to the door, but at the end of the day, it's attitude that gets us inside. That's why attitude is everything.
Thank you, Chiew. And I'll totally attest to that emotional intelligence bit. Suchada, very quickly, because we need to go one last round.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I think I can see the beauties of the diversity. Nowadays, we actually have this tradition in our office. We will have this lunch every Friday to give the chance for the people in the partner meeting to share their thoughts and the new things that comes up. Over the past 5 years, actually, I enjoy the Friday lunch meeting because it's a stage for the younger partner and also the oldest partner who's sitting in the meeting and chair, I think I can enjoy the new technology from the youngster, and at the same time, I can learn the wisdom from the elder generation. So I think that is the beauty of having people from different walks of life. So
Great,
that
great
is
practical
my-
tip on how you can have that encouragement of communication and learning from each other. Wonderful. So thanks, Adeline, for a question. Triggered interesting conversation. We only have 30 seconds left. I'm going to just give my panelists the chance for the last word. What's the one thing you want our audience to go back and do differently or to take away? And I'll let the ladies have the last word. I'll start with the gentleman, Park. I'm going to come to you first, and then Kunaluckkul, and then Suchada, and then Joe. Park, last word.
Sorry.
No problem.
We have to build the positive narrative on the important role of professional accountant.
Very important.
That's it. Yeah.
And we are all in it together. We'll build it together.
For me, diversity, equity, and inclusion is very important for all of us and for all of the organization to manage all of the people.
Right. Thank you.
For post-pandemic world, I think we need to ensure that we focus and prioritize the well-being of not just only the physical, but also the mentality of yourself and your team members, okay? Also, you must try to foster the culture of continuous learning and agility. This element actually will help not just yourself, but also your team and your firm, your organization, to success to another level.
Awesome. Joe.
To me, it's always about value proposition. What we do at the end of the day is how we're able to help not just ourselves, but to humanity. And as professional accountants, we're a vital force towards nation building. So we always remember that we should be an instrument towards working for a purpose and be a force for good. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all your inspiring sharing so we can all come together and build the best profession filled with the best talent. Please join me in thanking all my wonderful panelists. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ